Just a brief declaration that I have no conflict of interest in anything that I say or share within the presentation is solely my observations and what the literature says internationally. Now, to begin with, I just want to show this one slide, which I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, but then I will come back to it later on once we are summarizing, the whole talk. That why do we need pharmacovigilance? I mean, there could be many things that we can say. I know this word has been going lots and lots of rounds, especially since the beginning of the pandemic. We see meetings happening very regularly within FDA, within EMA, and all the other authorities and agencies around the world, taking up different treatment options, and especially, now that the vaccines are out there in different countries, and there are different vaccines. So obviously, this has been discussed in many different ways. We need pharmacovigilance because it's something of an humanitarian concern. We all know that ADRs can lead to death, and the promotion of the rational use and the adherence to medicines and the devices itself is something that this topic really looks at really closely. And lastly, the ethics is an important thing that we need to consider. That why is it ethical, and why is it important for all of us to kind of discuss, promote, and talk about this topic. Now, let me just step back a bit for all the young listeners to this talk. We all understand and we all see this in our theoretical learnings, that what are the clinical trials? To summarize this, the human safety data, which is extrapolated from all the animal studies, and until the point when a drug actually enters into the phases of human studies, it is often kind of deviant in many aspects, and then cannot be conclusively predictive. So the safety that we accumulate before going into the human population testing is always has a limited potential in it. So that leads us to an ongoing surveillance of all the medicines, even after once they are marketed. Now, according to WHO, and the reason we keep going back to WHO for a lot of the different definitions and the objectives is because, I mean, that's although that's not the case no more, people have kind of, as Asim Saab was talking about, that infodemic going around. People are questioning everything these days without any scientific rationales. But, WHO says that the major objectives of pharmacovigilance needs to include the improvement of patient safety and the patient care. It needs to improve the public health and safety. It needs to detect problems associated with medications and now the medical devices as well. And an ongoing benefit risk evaluation needs to be done. And it also encourages the rationality, how rational the medicines and these things are being used. And it also involves training and advocacy there. Now, do you think, and this is a question to the larger audience, that a different population can have a different effect when it comes to the consumption of medications? And the brief answer is yes. And we've heard about it, we talk about it, we've been told about it, that genetic variations of enzymes that affect the pharmacokinetics, affects medications, differ between ethnicities, but that can result in variation in the risk of ADRs. Now, while making an argument about this, that we need to monitor our drugs in our population to make sure that we detect the problems that might be very specific to our population. Yes, we rely, as Zishan was talking about, the regulatory aspect of the global spectrum of it. Yes, we rely on the data coming from the West largely. But then looking at this specific topic, I think it's really important that we understand the reality of this genetic variation and how that would impact the effects that would come in our population. So I actually ran into this study, which was very interesting, and I would encourage you guys to go and read it, that in a Pakistani population, and this was done only in Karachi, a significantly different prevalence of variant drug metabolizing enzymes was observed. So, this gives you an idea that while doing a study just alone in one of the bigger cities of the country, you see a lot of variance. So obviously, this gives us a clear indication that we need to monitor our drugs within our population. Now, I actually want to recommend, kind of commend DRAP and the Department of Pharmacovigilance on taking lots of initiatives in the last few years, and especially the province of Punjab, the Pharmacovigilance department there is doing a lot of good work. I know there's lots to be done, but I think they are on the right track and promoting pharmacovigilance in many different ways. So this is one of the rationalities that we need to look into. Now, linking this background to the healthcare organization. Now, this is a quadruple aim, is something that I want to share with all of you, which is something that talks about what are the four major things that a healthcare organization kind of aims to achieve. They want to achieve the best possible patient experience in the organization that improves the population health at an affordable or a reducing cost, which is kind of a very important factor to consider. And also the care team well-being, like, all the staff that works in the organization needs to be taken care of, because only then they'd be able to give a quality healthcare. Now, while looking at this, I wanted to kind of give you an example of the missions and the visions and the values that every healthcare organization gives. So I thought it would be a very good idea to kind of share with you, the mission and the vision and the values of the organization that is organizing this conference, and how that relates to these larger aims, and that, and that whole idea leading towards the better pharmacovigilance practices within the hospital. So the mission of Shifa International says that healthcare with compassion for all. Now, you cannot have a compassion if you are not concerned about the patient safety to the core of all the medications that are being given out and the treatments, of course. And then if we talk about the values that it says, it has compassion again, and the commitment and the teamwork and the quality and the respect and the accountability. And I think we can link all of those different adjectives all the way down to pharmacovigilance, that all of this actually does contribute in improving the patient experience at a healthcare organization. Now, once we have realized that this is an important thing as a healthcare organization, so obviously you've got to set a goal. What exactly do you think that you need to do in order to have a program which runs pharmacovigilance practices within the organization? You have to have an objective and a strategy and a tactic to it. Now, this can differ. This can have some basic principles that I will share with you in the next couple of slides. But I think every healthcare organization needs to look into whatever their structure is, how best can they do in order to achieve the larger goal of having pharmacovigilance being practiced in their organizations. And the question is, where do we begin? Now, how do we do this? What are the different ways? Yes, we have heard the name, but what do we do into it? Monitoring medicines, estimating the benefit risks, and then communicating it to the community, the healthcare providers themselves, and to the larger audience. So this is a very important thing to consider. So, I adapted this from a published article in 2011, which actually it was initially explained to for the countries to do it, to have the pharmacovigilance systems. But I think it's quite relevant for all the healthcare organizations as well, because all you need to do is you've got to have that political will, you've got to have that basic financing, and you've got to have that basic training available to your staff in order to begin having a pharmacovigilance program within your organizations. It can be started with a very simple objective of actually monitoring what's happening within your patient population. Now, there are lots and lots of advantages. What we have, talked about so far, all those adjectives that we have discussed, I think this addresses towards all of that to achieve the larger goal within the organization of highest quality patient care and highest quality satisfaction for all the patients. This goes a long way. So I think, considering this one slide can be a good start for any healthcare organization to have that pharmacovigilance set up within that organization. You can use lots of resources that has already been developed by the Drug Regulatory Authority, Pharmacovigilance Department, and the provincial departments. You can use those same forms. You can start training people within the organization. Make a team of 3 to 4 people, including a pharmacist, a clinical pharmacist, and a physician. And if you can get hold of any pharmacologist, that would be a good combo to begin with. And then involve the nursing staff and make it wider as you go along in order to evolve the functioning of your pharmacovigilance operations within the organization. Now, I actually want to give you and share an example with you of a country called Eritrea. And there is a reason for it, because this is a country in the Northeast African region, and which has a population of only 3.2 million. Now, within the last 9 years, this country has done enormously well in terms of pharmacovigilance practices. And the reason I'm actually sharing the country's example for what needs to be done in a health organization level is something that you can draw a lot of comparisons in there. A very low income country which now has a well kind of acknowledged pharmacovigilance system over the last 9 years. And in this slide, you could see what they've achieved. I mean, they're producing enormous numbers of ICSRs, which goes into the global database. I know Pakistan is now submitting regularly to Uppsala as well. But I think, the larger goal of pharmacovigilance goes beyond that submission that we do. This country has generated about 30 signals in that period. It has already achieved a maturity level of 3 on the WHO rapid benchmarking assessment. And remember, this country is only as big as Islamabad in Pakistan. So I think there is a huge opportunity in terms of every organization that wants to differentiate themselves. Why are they different? Why are they stepping ahead in terms of, their unique selling propositions in terms of, producing a quality healthcare? Now, how were they successful in Eritrea? Although this is a government program, but the provision of basic office infrastructure, that was to begin with. So they had a place, a dedicated place where people could work, working documents. I was listening to the presenters earlier, and one of the study was about the lack of SOPs at pharmacies. This is something where this is how you start. So you write up documents, you have to have those forms, you have to train the people how to submit an ADR, and then an ongoing trainings. Legal backups may not be required for a simpler pharmacovigilance setup at healthcare organization, but I think the political commitment is extremely necessary. When you do value something, you do something about it. And I think the best way to go about it is to start with whatever resources that you have, and then obviously keep looking out for all the other trainings and opportunities that you can get for your staff. And to conclude, I would just want to say that, whatever stage you are as an organization, you've got to see exactly how to move forward. If you think that it is something worth doing, and how does it differentiate you and your organization from many of the other organizations, and how would you value this? You've got to know exactly which behavior change level are you in. So I think after COVID-19 and the discussion that we have had on the treatments and the vaccines, everybody is kind of at least at a contemplation level. And now it's the time to kind of start preparing, and get into action on an organizational level and make sure that we stay there. And it's a continuous thing. I mean, it's not something, that actually can be done for one day of a year or 1 week of a year. It has to be done on an ongoing basis. The whole team needs to step in. Pharmacovigilance is something which cannot be done by just the pharmacovigilance department. It's everyone's responsibility largely. And whatever you report, we've got to remember this. Whatever we report, all those unusual ADRs, they can lead to a signal, which can then, lead a deep dive from the experts, and then can actually save lots and lots of lives. And Asim Saab was talking about, saving one life and saving the whole humanity. And that's a perfect example. This is, by having a process of pharmacovigilance within the organization, you're actually setting out on a very large agenda, which actually kind of then saves lots and lots of lives, which are even beyond your measurement, because your one signal can actually save lots and lots of lives. So with this, I want to thank the organizers again. And there's only a couple of comments that I actually want to make, if you guys would allow me. And I was listening to all the different presentations and the posters that were shared. And I want to congratulate all of you. And I think there were very interesting conversations by all the young people actually working on different studies. Keep doing it. It doesn't matter, if your methodologies were flawed and if your sample sizes were not good. But I think the idea is that we should encourage all of us and all of our young pharmacists and researchers to keep doing those researches, keep coming up with all the different results that you bring, and then obviously you'll improve along with the time. And one last comment on the ivermectin, and I want to talk about this because I do work within pharmacovigilance and within the vaccine of COVID-19. This is one thing that I want to share with all of you, that this infodemic has done a lot of damage in the last 24 months or so. And ivermectin is one of those examples. Yes, you might show a few efficacious points in a short study like what was shared by one of the participants. But I think we've got to consider what's happening elsewhere. Two major studies that actually proposed the treatment have already been retracted because of the fraudulent data, and one of them was a meta-analysis. Hundreds and thousands of studies were published since the pandemic hit, starting from hydrochlorothiazide to all the way God knows what. And then, a huge number of them have already been retracted, and some are in a process of under an enormous scrutiny. So when we design our studies, we do advocacy, we always have to understand that we've got to ensure that we present the most latest information to our audience, so that the reality is something that's shared at the right time. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you guys, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.